What can I make with all these vegetables from my garden? I know, ratatouille. Why is my ratatouille always mushy? How should I serve ratatouille? Is ratatouille good the next day? I'll answer these questions and more, and make sure you stay till the end so that I can share with you some suggestions on what to serve with your ratatouille. Pronto? Allora andiamo a cucinare. Ciao my friends, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Lucia. This is where I specialize in easy recipes for healthy, everyday cooking. So let's get started with today's recipe. It is ratatouille. We've got these beautiful vegetables that we got from the garden, tomatoes, eggplant, and zucchini. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with our saute pan, and we are going to place it on medium-high heat. And we're gonna add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And we are going to be dicing all of our vegetables in cube shape. So we want to make sure that they're all about the same size so they cook about the same size too, and we don't have really big chunks in our ratatouille stew. I'm going to start with the zucchini, and as I cut them, I'm just going to place them in my pan and they will start to fry up. Now, one of the things about ratatouille is people do find that their ratatouille is mushy. And the reason for that is because they cook some of the vegetables too long and they don't place them in the saute pan in the proper order. So one thing I have done to eliminate that is I actually make my ratatouille backwards. I know that sounds confusing, but you'll get what I'm talking about as we go through this process. So we want to start with our zucchini. We don't want to overcrowd the pan either. So once our pan is kind of a full level, we're just going to saute at that point. And I am going to add a little bit of salt. And the wonderful thing about this recipe is there's really no measurements. You can pretty much add however much you would like. If you like more zucchini or you have more zucchini, you can add more. If you want more eggplant, that's totally up to you, whatever you have. I'm adding about 3. Okay, so that's perfect. So we just want to cook this until it kind of gets golden brown on both sides. And while that's cooking, I'm just gonna cut up my eggplant next. Now with the eggplant, you can peel it if you'd like. I like to keep the skin on. There's a lot of good nutrients as well as fiber in the skin, so that's my preference, but you can definitely peel it if you'd like. Okay, so the zucchini's been cooking for about 5 minutes and it looks pretty good, nice and golden brown and soft. So I'm going to take our zucchini and dump it in this bowl, and we're just going to hold it off to the side for right now, and we're going to cook our next vegetable. And every time I cook, I add another tablespoon or so of olive oil. So we're going to add the eggplant in next, and again I'm going to salt this. And again, we just want to cook this until it gets nice and golden brown on a couple of the sides, and then we're going to put it in the bowl with the zucchini. So by cooking these vegetables and setting them apart, that's going to help them cook, but they're not going to overcook because we are separating them, and then we're going to bring everything together at the end. And so that will help our vegetables to stay firm the whole entire time that we're preparing this dish. Now for our tomatoes, I am going to dice them up as well. If they're really juicy, you can take the seeds out. I have a bowl here to do that, but these particular ones that I have beefsteak aren't really super juicy or have a lot of seeds. So I'm probably just gonna cube these up as is. Okay, so now our eggplant is nice and golden brown, so now I can remove that from the heat and place that in the same pan where I have the zucchini. And again, I'm gonna add a couple more tablespoons of olive oil. And now to this, I'm gonna add the tomatoes that I chopped up. And we're gonna let that cook. And while our tomatoes are cooking, I'm going to be cutting our bell peppers up. And you want to remember, if you can, I know they're from the garden, so sometimes you don't have too many choices, but you always want to look for the 4 humps on the bottom of your bell pepper, because that's a female and they're sweeter than the 3-hump bell peppers. So we're just going to go ahead and dice these as well, remove the inner seeds. Okay, so my tomatoes have been cooking for about 5 minutes. Yours might not need to cook that long. These were a little bit more watery than I thought, so I was giving them a few extra minutes to evaporate some of that liquid, but that's okay, because we do want some liquid in this dish ultimately. But they've been cooking for about 5 minutes, so the tomatoes have broken down. So now I'm gonna take this and add this to the rest of my vegetables. Again, another couple tablespoons of olive oil. You don't have to add as much if you're trying to cut back on your oil, but I like it and I think it's healthy for you, so that's just my opinion. So now this is where we normally, when we make a dish, we prepare it. we saute our onions and our garlic first, and this is where we're actually doing it last. So we are now going to add our onions to this, and this is kind of what I mean by cooking it backwards. Going to add some salt to the onions. I've also got some garlic that I've already crushed. I like to crush my garlic ahead of time because that gives the allicin, which is the health component in garlic that's really healthy. If you let it sit for about 10 minutes after you've crushed it, it releases a lot more of those components and it's more healthier for you. So I do like to do that in the beginning where I can just let it sit. So we just want to saute our onions for a couple minutes until they get translucent before we add the last ingredient. All right, so now I'm going to add our bell peppers that we've diced. And I just have the 2. Again, you can add as many bell peppers as you'd like. And we're going to saute that. Now the other thing I do like to do is that I will keep some broth as I cook, and if I find that it's getting too dry where you'd want to put more oil, because I don't want to put a lot of oil in this dish, I don't want it to be super greasy because I've already been adding a little bit every single time, I will add just a couple tablespoons of broth, or you could even do water or white wine or whatever kind of liquid you want, and it just kind of releases some of the brown bits from the bottom that are starting to form, and it creates a steam. And steam is a really high heat, and so that helps the vegetables saute quicker as well. So I will add a few tablespoons of that as I cook and I find that it's drying. So now we just want to cook our bell peppers for a few minutes until they get soft before we add the next ingredient. So now I'm going to add some tomato paste to this, probably about a tablespoon worth, and that is just going to help build some rich flavor in here. Because we have the tomatoes, it's just going to give it more of a deep, rich fall kind of depth to this dish. So we just want to cook this a little bit, and if you notice that it's too thick, we can add a little bit of liquid to it, whether it be wine or water or broth, whatever would be fine, but I'm going to try not to because I think I have enough juice left from the tomatoes, and so I'm just going to cook this for about just a minute or so, and then I'll add this in, and then if I find I need more juice, I'll add my broth. Okay, so now it's been about a minute or two here, so I'm going to now take the rest of my vegetables because everything's already cooked. It's just more or less just coming together and getting all these flavors combined. So we're going to add everything back to our saute pan. We're going to gently stir everything, and at this point we do want to taste for salt and pepper, and we have some toppings that we're going to add, so I'm going to get those ready as well. Okay, so our ratatouille's been cooking for about 5 minutes, and I think everything is perfect right now the way it is. All the vegetables are still firm, they're not mushy because of the way we cooked it. So I am going to take it off the heat now, and so to serve, let me just show you how I like to do it. Is I will place it on a plate, and you could serve this with all kinds of stuff. You could serve it with fish, with chicken, with rice, with polenta. You can serve it as in a sandwich. It's great for leftovers to add to a burrito or a breakfast burrito, eggs. I mean, the possibilities are just endless. I did end up adding about 3/4 of a cup of broth to this. I wanted it a little bit more brothy because I am going to serve this on rice, and so I like all that extra juice. And so once I have it served on my plate, I actually do like to give it a nice little fresh squeeze of lemon that just kind of enhances the flavor from the summer vegetables. I do like to garnish with a little bit of parsley. I like to add KALAMATA olives because that just kind of enhances the Mediterranean-ness of this dish. And then I also like capers. Of course, these are optional. You don't have to add these things, but I just think it adds some nice texture and flavor, especially with the capers being a little bit salty in that brine. So that's one way to serve it. Another way is I've taken some bread and I've toasted it here, and you could serve this as an appetizer. So you just want to place a little bit on your bread that you have toasted. And I have this reduction of balsamic vinegar that you can also just add a little squirt of that as well as a little bit of parsley to garnish. And that's another great thing you can do as an appetizer. There's just so many things that you can do with ratatouille. The possibilities are endless. It's a great way to use those summer vegetables. I hope you guys give this one a try, and I will see you next time. Ciao, I'm Chef Lucia.